For those that are new to this session, our organization is Richmond Neighborhood Housing Services. We're an affordable housing organization that provides housing to low to moderate income families. We're also a HUD-approved counseling agency that brings financial education to the community. We primarily focus on the pre-purchase workshops. So if you have interest in being a homeowner and you're a first-time home buyer, typically this education course is the first thing that you need to complete to get access to subsidy. But since we've been doing these classes, it became really evident there was a lot more financial information that people wanted to hear about, and that we found that a lot of folks weren't getting access to information like retirement, like insurance, understanding wills and trusts, doing a deeper dive into managing credit. So on a bi-monthly basis for 2021, we will be having different topics. And tonight's topic is Retirement 101. And so, as I said before, Jason Matthews is a financial professional, has his own firm, and has really made it his specialty to be able to get families to plan appropriately for retirement. So we have about an hour and a half. Our session is going to be an intimate one. We don't have a lot of folks, so we can definitely engage, have a conversation, and have it be informal, because we really want to make sure you get your questions answered. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to our presenter, Jason Matthews. Thanks for being with us tonight, Jason.
Thank you, Nikki. If you guys don't know, Nikki's like a big sister to me. I've been knowing Nikki Beasley for probably, I don't want to say because it makes me feel old whenever I do that, but I've been knowing Nikki now for at least 15 plus years. And I'm always glad to be talking about money because I love money. And I hope all you guys love money too, as well. What I'm about to do is share my screen. How many of you guys can see my screen? Can you just give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen? Thumbs up if you can see my PowerPoint screen. Perfect, perfect, perfect. So let me go ahead and do the slideshow view. So today, we're going to talk about the 7 rules to get an early start on your retirement savings. I think this is a highly important topic, as I think retirement is one thing we all think about, but we usually don't have an exact plan. I think if we go by these 7 rules, we will be okay. So here's the agenda. First, I'm going to introduce myself and give an introduction of myself. By the way, since we talk about money, I'm a very passionate person and I get excited. So if I am going too fast, please raise your hand, stop, pause, say something, as I am a person who's very passionate about life, money, and more importantly, what my mission into life, which is helping out the conditions of my community financially and economically. And that's my life mission and my life passion. Also, we're going to do the 7 rules after I introduce myself, then answer questions. Now, here's a precursor or rule I have. This is a positive room in a positive environment. There is no such thing as a dumb or stupid question. With that being said, if you do have a question, feel free. Don't feel like you're nervous or it's a bad question. There's no such thing as a bad or stupid question. So let me give you guys an introduction about myself. So I've been in the financial services industry since 2004. I was with New York Life back in 2004. And then in 2009, we had Wachovia closing, we had Washington Mutual closing, we hear about Bernstein's, and we had this huge financial crisis. People were losing their homes, leaving in the middle of the night. And I decided to, in October 2009, to open Matthews Financial Insurance Solutions. And what we specialize in is working with people who come across a windfall of money. And that could be from an inheritance, sale of real estate, switch jobs, just retired, or your business has grown substantially. And if you're not in that problem, but you might have questions, we are still here for you as well. Also, in 2018, I wrote this fabulous book with this handsome guy on the cover. The book was called The Age of Self-Reliance. And the reason I called it The Age of Self-Reliance was I thought when I wrote this book that the next downturn was going to be the worst downturn we'll ever see in our lives, and our government won't be there to save us. And the book, for the most part, came true. So it came true in 2020, unfortunately. But it's a book about how to prepare for the downturn. So a lot of things I reference are in this book. And if you want to get the book, I could donate raffle one off tonight, or you can just get it on Amazon as well. And then also, one thing I I'm one of the top 1% of financial advisors in the world. I'm a member of the exclusive association called the $1 Million Roundtable, which is huge for being young. African Americans are is very few of us in there, so I'm very proud of this accomplishment, which I do year after year after year. I'm probably one of the top financial advisors actually in the Bay Area, period. And I love what I do, and I care about what I do. And I care about each one of you guys who making sure that you guys are the best that you could possibly be financially, not just for yourselves, but for your spouse, your children, your community. And I think, and I always talk about how we can be better. If we're better financially wise, we can have a better communities, and we can put pride in our community, and we can have better outcomes later in life. And everything comes around oftentimes is about money and finance always at the time when we talk about it. So, and we see those things about the tragedy of the wealth gap, and we hear about money, but we really don't understand the wealth gap. And a lot of conversations we have is due to the wealth gap. And if we cannot change your products individually, you change the world of the wealth gap, but we can change it individually for ourselves. So I just want to definitely say that. And that I'm so glad you guys are on this call tonight. Whoops. So let's go to rule number 1, so saving early for retirement. You see the 24-hour fitness, right? You see Netflix, and unless you're like me, who uses his wife's grandmother's Netflix account, and we see the IRS, they all three have something in common, and they put everything on auto, right? 24-hour fitness, they're always going to take your money every month. Netflix is going to take the money out every month, unless it's your grandmother account, like we use my wife's grandmother account. And then the IRS is the first time, every time you get paid, they're the first one that takes the money out. Before you even touch it, the IRS does not trust you with your money. They automatically put it out. So rule number 1 to saving early is put your retirement plan on auto. Whatever the plan is, whatever it is, put it on automatically. Now, the reason being is when we do things and we do it on a consistent basis without us thinking about it, it's going to help us save and build the compounding effect that we want from a long-term savings, right? And even if you mess up, as long as we have a consistent plan, we'll save good. It's crazy when you think about our grandmothers and great-grandmothers. My family's from Louisiana, and it's crazy when you hear about our grandparents my grandparents who saved all this money, didn't make no money, but was able to pay for all their children. Remember back then, they had 10, 12, 15 children, but saved for the children to go to college. And the reason was that they put everything on auto. And the reason why it's more important ever to put things on auto is because our country is based off of consumption. We're always trying to make you consume and buy things. We get tempted, right? You can talk to your girlfriend about think about buying something from the store, and next thing you know, you see it on Facebook, you see it on the internet, we see it in all these places. So the first rule we have to do is learn how to put our retirement plans and our savings on auto without us thinking about it, because there's so much temptation to buy things. There's so much of it. I know. I talk to a friend like, hey man, I'm thinking about getting these shoes. All of a sudden, it's on my Facebook, it's on my Instagram. So the first thing we should do is rule number 1 is put it on auto before we can put it and not forget it, forget it, but we should review it from time to time. But if we put it on auto, we're going to have a system where we're automatically building wealth without us thinking about it. All right. So that's rule number 1 is put it on auto. The better it is on automatic, it's the best thing we could do. 24-hour fitness does it for a reason. Netflix does it for a reason. Why they have your money come out automatic? Because it's a guaranteed flow or income from them. And it's the same thing. It's a guaranteed flow or income for you when it comes towards retirement. Rule number 2 is save 20% of your income, right? I think that's the magic number. Well, some people are like, man, Jason, 20% is too much right now. Better is doing something is better than nothing, and keep putting it off is the worst thing you can do. But if we can save 20% of our income, it is a great rule to live by. Now, let me reverse back because this is a bonus rule that I think, especially for people who have couples or have second jobs or a side hustle, I think this is a strategy I try to tell people: live off of one income as well. Right? Save 20% is a great rule, but the bonus rule is live off of one income. So let's say if you're married, right? Let's stay within our means, live off of one income, which might be me or my spouse's, and save the rest of it for retirement. It gives us more flexibility. It gives us more power. So I always say that. But minimum is let's say 20%. If we have additional side hustles, save or stack that money. If we have a spouse, why don't we try to live off of one spouse and then not live off the other? And you say, wow, that's tough, right? I agree. It is a tough thing. But let's say if this, what happens if we just start with one paycheck if you do have a spouse, right? Out of the two checks your spouse might get every month, and just try to live and try to stack that one check. I think the more we have for retirement, the better. Because one thing we're failing to realize is that retirement could be all the way up to 90, 95 years old. We're all young in this call. We don't know the advancement of medicine. It's crazy when you used to talk to people and you used to talk about they die from old age back in the 70s. We don't hear that phrase anymore. We hear about people dying from high blood pressure or diabetes, but we're taking better care of ourselves than the previous generation. A perfect example of that is I look at my father lifestyle. My father drank Johnny Walker every single day. He'd be driving me in his Cadillac as a kid, drinking Johnny Walker, smoking cool cigarettes. How many of us actually see people smoking cigarettes all the time outside? How much do we see people drinking and consuming alcohol at high levels like they used to? We don't see it. We're a lot healthier people now. You see us walking. You see people working out. So we're going to live a lot longer along with the advancement of science. So I highly recommend that we save at least 20%. But if you can't save 20%, do something. And let me say this. And it's more important than ever because the entities that are here to give us the promises that I think are existing are simply not going to be there. And we see that now more than ever. Once again, the entities and the promises and the safety nets that you think is there is not there like we thought it was going to be. We are truly in the age of self-reliance where you are personally going to be responsible for your own retirement plan, for your own well-being more than any other time. And we see it currently during COVID, and I think it's going to get worse in the next 5, 10, 20, or 30 years. Right? So when I say rule number 2 for as saving 20%, put together a budget, see what you can eliminate. I think that's a good thing as well. So rule number 1, remember, is put it on auto. Put that money, when you get paid on the 1st, have it automatically get put to the side. You get paid on the 15th, have it automatically put to the side where you don't have to. Remember, rule number 2 is try to save 20% of your income. If you can't save that much, save as much as you can. Revitalize or revamp your plan as well. A rule also I will say is this for retirement. If you're self-employed, prepare for downturns and the cycles. So in business, you're always going to have these upswings and downswings, right? And so what you want to do is during those upswings, you want to save more money during that period of time. So when those downturns happen, you'll be okay. You can ride that wave without having that verge of bankruptcy as well. So here's rule number 3 right here. Put as much money in your employer retirement plan as your employer matches. There are tons of different retirement vehicles. There's 401k plans, 403bs, 457s. The numbers and the letters could go on and on and on. But the rule of thumb that you hear from any advisor is you should be saving as in your retirement plan as much as your employer matches inside your employer plan. It does not mean that you don't have another retirement plan, but you should contribute as much as your employer plan matches. So if your employer plan says, hey, for every, we'll save 6% up to 6% of your money. So you put in 6%, they match 6%. You should do it. It is free money, right? Imagine if you're making 50 grand a year, 6% of 50 grand is 3,000. That's $3,000 raise of free money, as long as you contribute and you match. So, and as long as you match. So put as much as your employer match, but it's not going to be your end all be all. but we always want to never leave free money on the table. So always contribute up to what your employer matches as well. And then whatever remaining of it, we could park and think about putting it somewhere else. And I apologize, I put rule number 5, but this should be rule 4. It says put the rest of your retirement savings into your tax-free bucket. So when I look at retirement, there's 4 buckets that we have. The first bucket is our guarantee bucket, which means the money you automatically put in, and you're supposed to get a guaranteed income coming back out. That is for people is Social Security if you work for the private sector. And if you're on the public sector, which means you probably work for your county, city, or any local municipality, or even federal, you get some type of pension as well. That is your guaranteed income. Your second bucket is what I call your tax deferred bucket, which means I get a tax deduction on the money today. The money grows tax deferred, which means it's growing without me paying taxes. How it's compounding growing. But when I pull out the money as income, I pay taxes on it. The third bucket for retirement is what we call our tax-free bucket, where you say, you know what, I'm not worried about taxes today. So I'm going to go ahead and pay those taxes today. The money's going to grow tax deferred. And when I pull it out, it's going to be all tax-free. So my rule of thumb is we should be putting some money in our tax-free vehicles for retirement, either a Roth IRA, cash value life insurance. If you have a health savings account, highly recommend health savings account as a great vehicle if you're healthy. And the reason being is this, and I'm dealing with this right now with a few of my clients, is when we're young, we buy a home, we have kids, which are the biggest tax deductions for most people in their lives. But when we turn retirement, our kids are adults, our home is pretty much almost paid off, we're only paying principal, and we have no more tax deductions. And when we start taking money out of our 401k plan and Social Security, we get killed if we take all the money out of just those 2 vehicles for retirement. So another way to diversify our retirement is by having some tax-free retirement income as well to balance out the taxes we're paying on Social Security and also in our tax deductible bucket. Rule number 6, and this is I'm a big baseball guy. I have 2 boys. I have a 12-year-old, I have a 3-year-old. My son Kai, he's actually practicing getting his speed down, and we're a huge baseball family, and I have a 3-year-old. And one thing, I'm a big baseball coach, and it's one thing I always say is if you can't play catch, you can't play baseball. Which means we can talk about stealing to my son. I can teach my son how to bunt, and all that is fine and well. But if you can't play catch, you simply cannot play baseball. And it's the same thing I'm hearing everybody talking about, especially right now as we have this huge upswing in the stock market. It's doing great. We hear about cryptocurrency, and it is growing like crazy. And I hear all this, but we don't have our fundamentals down on what it's just the basic fundamentals. All that great stuff is great and sexy, but all that stuff really doesn't mean stuff. Right? It's like that one building. It's like the Millennial Building in San Francisco. How many of you guys are familiar with the Millennial Building in San Francisco? Give me a thumbs up if you remember it. And if you don't, remember in San Francisco, the Millennial Building is that beautiful building in San Francisco. It's $1 million condos in there, millions and millions of dollars condos. And it's one of the most beautiful buildings you have in San Francisco. But what's the problem with that building? It's that its foundation is structurally damaged and wrong. So people bought these $1 million condos, multi-million dollar condos, right, in San Francisco. But the foundation was weak, right? And so the people had to evacuate because it made the building go tilt more and more. Eventually, they have to visually fix it. And that's the problem we have. That building had granite. You had the glass. They had the glass where you can see the Bay Area and all your windows with the glass windows. You had the granite. You had the hardwood floors. But the foundation was messed up. And so that building didn't mean nothing. And there's still huge lawsuits for it. And it's the same thing with us. If we don't have our foundation right, we will be messed up for our retirement. I don't care how sexy the thing is for cryptocurrency or the stock market. We have to make sure we have a good foundation. And so what consists of a good foundation, and when I say right here, catch, is this, is making sure that we work to have a proper emergency fund. Number 2 is make sure our health insurance and our health care is taken care of. Because yes, in 2008 was a huge financial crisis. And yes, all the way through 2010, there was tons of people who got foreclosure and tons of people filed for bankruptcy. But the number one reason people filed for bankruptcy in America, still in those years, was due to health related costs. And I'm noticing that this call is mostly women. It's crazy when we see how many breast cancer survivors filed for bankruptcy after they went through breast cancer, which is a horrible thing. You've been through the tragedy, you've been through this challenge, you fight it, and then you have to go through and file for a bankruptcy, which is a horrible thing, right? So we want to make sure that's taken care of for our foundation. Also, we want to make sure that we have disability insurance as well, which means this. Yes, you might have your health insurance taken care of, but guess what? It doesn't cover your roof over your head. It don't put food on the table. It don't do anything. So we need to make sure we have the proper amount of disability insurance. Now, if you have a health insurance, great, that's covered at work. What we want to do is make sure you have your proper amount of disability insurance through your employer. Most employer plans usually cover 60% of your base income. So if you rely on a bonus or a commission, usually your disability at work doesn't cover that. So you should consider a supplemental. The fourth thing is make sure you have proper amount of life insurance to make sure you do cover any debts, make sure anything's taken care of if anything happens to your family. And then once you turn over 50, I always say you want to have a long-term care plan. Who is going to take care of me if I get sick? What's my game plan? Do I want to be at a home? Do I want to be at a facility? If I get sick, do I want to be taken care of in my home? And who is going to take care of me? Is it going to be a family member who takes care of me? Is it going to be my spouse? Are they going to be able to take care of me? Is it going to be my children? Or am I going to pay for somebody to come to my home? A perfect example of that right now is my wife's grandparents. My wife, her grandmother's 87 years old, 88 years old, I apologize, and her grandfather's 94. And he has dementia, and he's been falling lately, and she's unable to pick him up, so she may have to call 911. And the sacrifices she had to do for her own quality of life over the last few years been great. Not even a few years. For the last 10 years have been crazy. I remember an incident where she tried to leave him at home when he first had Alzheimer's dementia and go to a wedding in Tahoe. So we went to Tahoe and she called him up. She was calling to check on, make sure he's okay, early dementia. And unfortunately, he was not answering the phone. And the wedding, she went up there on a Saturday. On a Saturday, the wedding's actually a Sunday, and she kept calling, he wouldn't answer. She lives in Walnut Creek. Since he didn't answer, my father-in-law drove her back to Walnut Creek to make sure that he was okay because he was not answering the phone. Long-term care is often not about ourselves; it's making sure that our family members and loved ones are having proper care. And that's what long-term care is. Not always insurance. It's making sure we have a plan if something does happen to us. Rule number 6 is, all right, we all love cars, we love everything, but don't increase your lifestyle until you increase your income. All right. I see a lot of times we're saving, or we want to see the cars and everything. We get caught up by the dealership, caught up in the Nordstroms, the Macy's, the Amazon, because we don't follow rule number 6, which is don't increase your lifestyle until you increase your income, right? And my rule of thumb, or I really believe in even more, I love this rule, but what I believe in more is don't increase your lifestyle until you increase your passive income, right? Which means you figure out how to generate additional income without you working before you increase your lifestyle. Oftentimes, as soon as we get a job, we're ready to live up to that job lifestyle. It's better oftentimes just to sit back, chill, work, and develop and figure out how to increase our income before we increase our lifestyle. But the problem is we oftentimes try to increase our lifestyle before we increase our income because of the needs and the wants and everything else. We always want that. But if we can stay focused on how do we figure out increasing our income by educating ourselves, start a side business, start a business, learn how to invest in stocks and educate ourselves. If we do that and then raise that growth and raise our income levels, then do the lifestyle, we'll do a whole lot better than our income's being stagnant and increasing our lifestyle, which are usually the results of that is we're putting ourselves further in debt. and putting ourselves in further debt religiously, which I'm not a religious person, but if you look at most religions, is considered usury. Debt is, and we don't want to do that. Also, we're putting on additional stress upon our lives, right? And that's because we're having short-term gratification instead of doing the work, right? I'm trying right now. My goal is to lose 20 pounds. So I'm doing the work. I'm eating good. I'm not having sweets Monday through Thursday. I apologize. Friday, I'm cheating. Right? I'm not eating bread and all that. I'm looking good, but I know I need to get leaner. So I have to do the work instead of getting what I really want to do, which, might get go to the doctor and have him do some type of quick surgery. But which is good for the short term, but probably not good for the long term. So let's figure out how we can increase our income. Once again, by figuring out how we can get a raise, educating ourselves, saving more money, like I said, educating yourself, getting a side hustle, learn about stocks and bonds, maybe rental income, additional real estate, or maybe it's additional roommate, and then we increase our lifestyle by that, having a roommate, which is nothing wrong with it. But let's figure out how to increase our income before we increase our lifestyle. And rule number 7, and is in my book, I talk about this a lot, is educating yourself on money and how money works. Tonight, I'm so glad you guys got on the call. I think it's so important that we educate ourselves about money, which is picking up money books. Yes, the best money book is The Age of Self-Reliance, but there's other great books about money. Educate yourself as much as possible by reading and educating yourself, not just by books. Think about starting an investment club. Watch YouTube. Figure out who has money. Ask them what did it take for them to build wealth and stuff. Understand what's happening and stuff by educating yourself as much as possible. I think the narrative of us just going blind and not understanding money is a huge mistake when we spend so much time working in our life, working every day and night, and not understanding the basics of our money. So I think it's highly important that we do understand money. Like I said, once again, read tons of books. If you want to just have tons of books, educate yourself. Get board games. I have my 12-year-old. Every Friday night we do game night, and this Friday for the board game is we're reading the book. Not reading the book. We're playing the game Cash Flow. So I want him to understand money a little bit better. So we're playing the board game Cash Flow. So it's fun. It's interesting towards him, right? So find an investment club. Or start an investment club. Find a bunch of your friends and say, hey, we're going to start an investment club. We're going to might buy some stocks, buy some bonds, some mutual funds, some ETFs. And I know some of this stuff might go over your guys' head or even some real estate, but start an investment club where you guys start teaching, educating yourselves on how can we build wealth for ourselves. Because like I said, the safety net that we think we have is not going to be there. And and they're not going to be able to keep the promises they keep. Right? We just printed all this money and it still was not enough. And I don't think we can keep printing money forever. So we have to educate ourselves on more than ever. Like I want to keep implementing, educating ourselves. Start an investment club, read, watch YouTube videos, find out what other people are doing. Take some classes at your local JUCO if they're offering online. But educate yourself on how money operates, right? And then one thing I didn't put on here is review your plan. Whenever you have goals, whenever you have financial plans, review it, right? Review it every 3 to 6. I recommend every 6 months. So I meet with all my clients every 6 months to review it. Make sure you're on track with it. Make sure you're on track with your goals you might have for yourself for retirement. If your goals is to retire at 50 or 55, 60, 65, 70, that's your personal goal. But make sure you stay on track for what it takes. Reverse engineer what it is, right? Figure out how retirement is going to look for you. How does it sound like? What activities you going to do? What are you going to be doing with your time? Are you just going to sit on TV and watch TV all day on the couch? Are you going to give back towards a nonprofit? Are you going to be traveling the world? Are you just going to be hanging out with your grandkids, which are all fantastic retirements? But it's really up to you. On the way to that, figure out what speed bumps there might be. Is there going to be a downturn in the market? Is the taxes or tax rates, will they go up or down? Am I still going to live in my home house? Once we reverse engineer all the speed bumps and all the issues and all the tragedy, and we figure out what's really going to take, then we can live out that goal of retirement. I think retirement is a fabulous thing, but we have to plan for it. We cannot just wake up and one day and hope that we do. We cannot just wake up and hope that our retirement plan is the lotto. And right now, there's tons of money in the lotto. But if we put a strategic plan together, right, or you put together a strategic plan, and follow these 7 rules, You can retire a good, comfortable lifestyle. And believe me, I have seen people do it. It's not the person who trying to get rich in a hurry. It is the person who is conservative, who's a consistent saver and doing it over and over again. Who I've seen in my 16 years of being, almost 17 years now, or about to be in a couple more months, which is crazy for being so young and I grew up in this business. But it's that person who is a saver, who consistently saves, are the people who are able to retire. It's not the people who are taking crazy risks and do anything. No, it's the person who are savers, who review their plans, and who put on auto and do it over and over and over again, who have success. And I'm about to leave this up to any questions you guys might have about retirement.
Jason, I have a question for you.
Yes.
When working with your client, because that's a lot, and many people, there's a lot of multitasking of the dollar that you're mentioning as far as the number of accounts one should have, the way that one should save. So can you walk the group through kind of the reality of a person who, may just have the day job, has the standard bills? How do you work a client through the process to help them understand what they could afford to put away from retirement? And if they can't do everything, what would be the one or two things you would guide them toward?
Definitely. So I think the first thing we do is let's put together a budget. Let's figure out how much money you have coming in, which I think not everybody knows how much money you actually have coming in. And let's figure out how much money you have coming out. And then at that point, what we can say is, this is how much money we should save. And with that savings, then what we should say is, hey, with that savings, is your employer putting money into your retirement account? Or are they matching you? And you say, yes, that should be at least one thing you should be doing, is putting money in your employer retirement account if they match without a shadow of doubt, that should be the one thing you should do.
And for those that may not be familiar with all the different plans, what are some of the sponsored employer plans for retirement that are out there?
Yeah, so there's the 401k plan, which is if you work from the private sector, is usually the 401k plan for larger companies. If you work on the nonprofit or government side, you usually have a 403b or a 457 plan. And then if you're a small business owner, you usually have a SEP IRA or a 401k plan or a solo 401k plan.
Thank you. So for the participants, what questions do you have?
I see one person asks, is it smart to have more than one life insurance policy with multiple organizations? I see that question from Monique. It depends. And the reason it depends on the objective of the policies that you have. I do personally have multiple policies just on my individual self, and my wife does as well. And there are with multiple insurance agencies for life insurance companies. And it depends on a couple of things. One is, and here's what you guys should consider when you look at life insurance. If it's a term policy, what is the riders that are available within that insurance company? What is the convertibility option of it? Which means if I have a term policy in 20 years, does it just expire, or does it allow me to convert it over to a permanent policy where I have to redo my exam, even though my health might deteriorate and I can no longer get it? Those are a good thing. And the riders are the additional bells and whistles you might have on life insurance. So for a term policy or even permanent, it might be what they call a waiver premium is probably the biggest one, saying if I get sick, the insurance company is going to continue to pay those premiums for me. There might be additional ones such as long-term care, where it adds long-term care or critical illness. So it depends on your objective of the policy and which insurance companies might work out for you if they can fit the objectives. And objectives do change. For instance, I just bought a house. You should get some life insurance because you just bought a house. I just had another child. Well, if something happens to me, I want my wife to be taken care of. So I want to get additional life insurance, making sure that my wife is taken care of for the child. Maybe I might want to use it for saving for college or retirement. Well, there might be another insurance company who's really good at that have a policy that's really good for saving for retirement for college. So it depends on the situation.
Thank you for that, Jason.
Yeah,
What
definitely.
other what other questions does the group have related to retirement? And
Um,
oh, go ahead, Brittany.
Thank you. I wanted to know, like, what do you think is like the best plan for a young person? I'm 23 going on 24. I have no like crazy loans. I don't have any student loans or anything like that. I want to invest in a Roth IRA, but I'm really scared because of like the way the stock market and the economy is right now in this moment in time. So just like for a young person, like what do you think is ideal?
Okay, that's a great question. Um, and that's a fantastic. I'm about to switch my screen to a whiteboard um, because I think sometimes we often get a couple things confused. So a Roth IRA, I'm about to show my board. This is a garage, right? And this is, whoops, let me move this up a little bit. And this is the Roth IRA. And this is I'm a horrible drawer, but this is a car. Does that look like a car to you? So a Roth IRA is really just a tax code for you, right? And it just means that the money you put in grows tax deferred, and when you pull it out, it's tax free. Now the vehicle that you park in your garage could be a whole lot of different things. It could be a Lamborghini, it could be a Honda, it could be a Toyota, or any type of car or vehicle that's in that garage. These are the same thing. Whoops. When we look at investments, the investments we have inside this could be tons of different vehicles that we could use. So in a Roth, you can have a savings account. You can even have some real estate. You can have some stocks, and you can have some bonds. But remember, and you can have a bunch of other things. These are just four basic ones. But remember with the Roth, uh, remember with your age, you got tons of years to grow, to recoup if the market does drop. Compared to somebody who's 62 who wants to retire in 3 years, they might not be able to afford for a downturn in the market. So with you have tons of years, unless I'm not sure when you want to retire, but usually you probably have tons of years till you can retire. So you could be able to take on that risk more compared to somebody who is older. I love Roth IRAs if people could qualify for it. But I always say rule number one, do whatever your employer matches in your retirement plan. Number two, then I love is just Roth IRAs is anything in the Roth IRA if you qualify for it. And that depends on your contribution limits, where you're trying to contribute, and then also what's your income limits, if you can or cannot. That's your personal, and that's just personal for you.
And Jason, if I could just add to that, Brittany, also keep in mind, and those on the phone, that as you are planning for these different things, as long as you understand what the tool is designed to do, you definitely will be able to manage your expectation. So with stocks, bonds, mutual funds, it is cyclical. So it is designed to go up and down. And you don't realize the loss until you get ready to sell or withdraw. So if you're 24, the market crashes and you're not planning to touch this money till you're 50, typically it's 7 to 10 years of a cycle. So by the time you're ready to retire, it will be up again. So a lot of times with investments, you're carrying what they call a paper loss. It only becomes a real loss if you have to withdraw. And to Jason's point, your age will indicate your ability to absorb risk. So me at my age, I can't take the same risk that you would take because I have little or no time to recoup. So the earlier you get started, and if you have disposable income, it definitely is advantageous to take advantage of all tax shelter and tools, because as I say in our classes for pre-purchase, tax avoidance is not illegal. If you are maximizing all the tax strategy so that you are ideally breaking even with Uncle Sam at the end of the year, that is not illegal. Tax evasion is. But if you can maximize all the tools that are out there, you're winning. So thanks for asking that question.
Definitely. And Brittany, you're way ahead of the curve. A lot of people are not on the calls who should be with your age. If you can take definitely advantage of it. And there's a group of young people throughout this country more and more who is called, I'm not sure, have you ever heard of it, called FIRE, if you're not familiar with them. But it's the acronym stand financially independent, retire early is the acronym, where you having these people who are retiring like at 40, 45 years old, retiring early by really being aggressive, saving and investing really early. doing it because they want to live a fire lifestyle where they're actually retiring early. Yeah, which is fantastic. I love what I do, so I don't think I'm ever going to retire because I never work a day in my life. But yeah, it's a great idea to do and think of. Any other questions?
Well, how many people feel they're on track? How many of you feel that you're on track, that you feel like you are on track to meet your goal? You know when you want to retire, you know how much you need to retire. How many of you feel confident conversation about retirement?
That's a hard one. It's listening to you talk, Jason. It's comforting, but at the same time, it's like scary because just like you're saying, like just seeing all the economic downturn, there's literally no safety nets, and every time I hear someone say it's like, oh, it's not going to be any social security for your generation, and like how like that too. How do you calculate how much you will need? You know what I'm saying? Like as a young person, you know, if I retire in my early 60s, what will I need to sustain myself to where I won't have to go back to work, you know, and rely on any type of other safety nets?
Yeah, so I think the easy number, how I always tell people, is it's a pretty simple formula um, to figure out how much money you need. Is figure out what's your monthly income, not your monthly expenses times your monthly income times inflation. And usually U.S. inflation is 3%, times the years you're going to be retired for. I messed up all of that. I write sloppy, but that's really bad. So let me give you an example. Let's say my monthly expenses is $5,000 a month. I'm going to times that by 3%, and I'm going to times that by say 20 years, and if I know rule of 72, that means in 20 years, if I'm going to retire in 20 years, that means I'm going to need 10 grand a month of. I know I'm going to need 10 grand a month of monthly income. So I need to make sure I figure out a way where I can guarantee $10,000 coming in every month based off my monthly expenses now. Now, as my lifestyle or my expenses went up, I know this number is going to naturally go up as well to cover that.
And Jason, we have a question or a comment. Retired and not confident. I'm trying to earn generational wealth for my children. Savings, life insurance, and stocks. Is there anything else that Monique is missing besides the savings, life insurance, stocks?
A trust, for sure. Anything else I would tell you on top of your head, you need to have a trust. I think we haven't talked about that, but that's a huge thing that we're not talking about as well. Missing is making sure you have a trust or estate plan done so you could where you can. I'm not sure your situation, but you want to make sure that you talk to an estate planning attorney so you could pass down the wealth that you have in the proper manner without paying the government, paying attorneys, and all these excessive fees that kills generational wealth. So I highly recommend that you meet with a estate planning attorney and put together a trust. I'm not sure how much of all this stuff you have, but it's something that, if you mentioned that, should be involved in the mix, is having an estate plan done.
Hello,
Yes.
Darlene. I'm here. I'm here. I lost.
Yes, go ahead. Ask your question.
Oh no, I was still listening. I'm sorry, I tuned in a little late. Oh my God, I just got back to California.
Well, thanks
So,
for joining us.
welcome. So I joined it kind of late, so I just want to. I was just listening, and I just want to. I kind of didn't get the gist of what I got in the middle of. So,
Okay.
can y'all give me like a kind of rough view?
Yes, so we have this recorded and you'll be able to review it on our YouTube channel, but this is a discussion about retirement. Jason Matthews just gone through a presentation. And so now we're just going through the Q&A based on the information. So if you have any questions to retirement, this would be the time to answer. So that's where we are at this point.
Okay, well, I didn't get in, but actually, if it's about retirement plans and just saving for the future, what is the proper age that a person is supposed to know, like when to start saving? Because like from school to getting out of mom's house to getting your own, and in my position, I don't have a kid, so I'm not putting that in my perspective. But when is the smartest age, and like what is like how do you start like being more responsible with money? That's what I tune in for. Because
Now,
I feel like every time I get money, a lot of people know I get money, but my family be like, "Oh, you got it." Like, man, I have to fly, I have to talk, I have to, I have to do a lot of the footwork. So when do you say no? When do you say?
let me help you out. I work with a lot of people coming into inheritance settlement and who's young, and I tell people one of the biggest mistakes you could ever do is telling people you got money. Right, and I think this is one thing we don't talk about. I'm about to do. I think this is a predominantly Black lineup, cast of people, minorities. Let me be honest with you. And one of the biggest mistakes we have is that we tell our family members that we have money, and it's a huge mistake because when people think you have money, especially our family, they think we owe them something, and they think, oh, so now you have money, you should help me out, or you should take me out, or like I can borrow something. And when we borrow, let me say this. When we allow our family members to borrow money, what I often notice is not a loan like you think. You're actually giving out a donation. And my mother used to always say, the South, she's from the segregated South, right? Louisiana, segregated South. You only give out as much money as you can afford to lose. And what always often happens is we do more than that. And when we do that, now people feel then when people don't pay us back, we're pissed off and that relationship ends and they're severed forever. So I always tell people, don't tell people how much money you have. And don't loan out your money to family only as much as you can afford towards them. The thing is, the people have money, they don't tell you. The people have money don't tell people they have money for that reason. Because
Exactly.
Because when you have money, they feel like you're obligated to do things with them with that money. And when you go broke, they're going to talk mess about you not having money, right? So that's one rule that is a big thing I tell them people not to. But when should you plan for money? When you don't have money and when you do have money. It's an ongoing thing. When you don't have money, you should close your eyes and say, this is how my life is going to look. This is what I want. And I should be figuring out, here's a plan on how I'm going to get what I want. Where do I want to live? What type of car do I want? What type of lifestyle I want to go? When is the vacation? And plan out, reverse engineer that look. Because when you reverse engineer that talk, you are thinking about money. You are planning about money. And at the same time, you should be like, how will it stack, conceive, and build up income and really build up passive income as well to get there, to get to that dream, whatever. So when did that money talk start? It starts tonight. As a matter of fact, it should have started in the past. My son's 11 years old, or just turned 12 in December. We're already having money talks because talking about money is important now. I think a lot of times in the Black community, we don't understand how important money is. We should always be stacking money.
We know how to work for it, but we don't understand what it really does. Like, yeah, you're right.
Right. Because let's think about it, right? The biggest tragedy, the biggest news last year, besides COVID, was George Floyd. Right? Let's look at the George Floyd life. This brother was in Texas, right? His best friend played in the NBA, right? Was helped taking care of him, right? And when he helped and then his friend stopped playing in the NBA. His friend money was not even the same, right? And so his friend's like, man, I can't take care of y'all like I used to. I just retired. I gotta make sure I'm straight. So George said, all right, bet, cool. He went up to Minneapolis to better his life. He got a job paying about $14 an hour at the Goodwill.
At a club.
First, he was at the club part-time, then he was at the Goodwill. At the same time, after that, he got laid off because the club's not working. And this is why you're talking about money today. The club is not working. Goodwill's not open. He's unemployed. His unemployment benefits haven't come in, and he has COVID. The brother was hungry. He went to grab a sandwich. I don't know if his money, if he had the $20 bill was counterfeit or not, but they called the police on him for $20. Now, right
Yeah,
now,
that shouldn't even be in the issue. Like, if people do
yeah,
fraud all that for
right,
billions of dollars. So.
right. But let me say this: the money that he had, that call, this shouldn't even happen. Because let's say if one of my bank cards get declined, what am I about to do 1 second later? You're like, oh man, your $20 wrong. I'm like, huh? That's not even real. Whatever, man.
Right.
Guess what I would have done? I'll give you my another bank card. But obviously, he didn't have the money to do that. What is that about? That is a money and wealth issue that we're not talking about. So when you talk about money, when we should talk about money and planning, we should be talking about money and planning today. I don't care how old you are. We should be talking about it today. I'm talking to my 12-year-old. We've been having talks about money. We're always talking about money. I'm talking about when he do stuff stupid with money and when he does smart. So we should always be talking about money and planning for retirement and money always right now and having a wealth plan for ourselves.
That's some great dialogue. Any other questions or thoughts as we're having this dialogue? Because I think what Jason and the young man is talking about, even though the conversation is focused on retirement, there's so many other factors to wealth that we need to consider before we can even get to the retirement conversation. Or is anything resonating with people? I have seen some comments that, you didn't know, but now you're learning and trying to teach your young ones. But based on the conversation that we've had, are there any walkaways, any kind of action items that you think you can start implementing right away?
I'd say
As far as me that just tuned in, I want to know how to find a group that I'm talking to. Further than this.
And I'll get to your question in just a minute, but there was someone that was asking a question right before you came on. So, but I didn't see who that was. So if you have a question, go ahead and ask. Was there another question out there?
Oh no, you mentioned action items. I guess now as well too. I'll look into the 401(k) program. I think that we have. Because I'm looking at it and I'm just like, I don't know what this is. But like, getting the information from here, I'll look more into it so I can have some type of something. And then, as you were saying, Jason, it's 6% of your income that can go to that. So that's something better than losing money.
Just to let you know, Brittany, for your employer, you said 401, so it's either a 401(k) or 403(b). Those are just the IRS code for the type of retirement plans. 401(k) is for a for-profit, 403(b) is typically for a nonprofit. But typically, whatever plan you choose, the company or the company administering the fund should have some resources to help educate you on how to invest, how to put your money so you will get support. But the young man asking for different groups, I know that Clubhouse has become really popular to where there's a lot of content and dialogue on a host of different topics, and money and wealth tends to be on that. There's still Facebook groups. Jason mentioned Fire Movement. I don't know if that is an active group or just a strategy and initiative. But Jason, do you have any resources for this young man if he wants to stay connected to the financial conversation?
Yeah, definitely. There's a couple of things. One thing I will tell you is I do have a YouTube channel also, which can educate you. Look up the Urban Financial Services Coalition and put us in. I'm the president of it. But if you put your contact information, we're doing tons of financial literacy courses. I believe the next one we're having is in a couple of weeks, where we're doing financial literacy courses at once a month as well, just to educate you on financial literacy. And then as far as the investment clubs, I would just Google investment clubs and see what pops up as far as that.
Advancement Club?
Investment club. And that might help you out as well. And just tons of reading, man. Just read like crazy.
Well, I mean, I did that, but I ain't gonna lie, I travel a lot. I actually just got back. It was crazy. As I knew that this was today, I was like, I have to look at it again. I just got back to California from Atlanta last night. So I travel a lot. So like, I always try to figure it out. When I went to Atlanta, I saw a lot of wealth. It was very beautiful out there. was super beautiful. I'm like, man, they got all this. And they coming back to the Bay Area, they be like, man, we don't got nothing no more. I'm always interested in trying to figure out like why the Bay Area is different from the South. Like everybody look at the South like they don't know no better, but they still got property. California is selling everything. I'm like, I see the difference. But this is good knowledge, though. I'm gonna step back. I just want to hear some more.
Well, I appreciate your comments, and I would just say to Jason's point, doing the reading and research, because there's definitely a reason why the North looks a lot different than the South. Our history shows a lot of folks left the South trying to get to the North to get out of the slavery and all the things that were happening in the South. So it looks and feels different, and we're all trying to understand, is all that we go through to stay here in the Bay Area, is it worth it? Based on, like you said, being able to go to Atlanta and get acres of land for a fraction of the cost, but it definitely is a different mentality.
Right, I freshly just got back and like these people are living comfortable. Like, God, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Like it's, and I was out there for 2 weeks. I'm like, man, what? I'm like, but I just got back today. So right now I'm in Richmond, back in my house. I'm like, Mr. So small.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. It's different, but a lot of our people came out here. I think I already know why they came to the West. But man.
Yeah. So if you're not sharing anything, please put your mic on mute so that we can not have the background noise. Are there any other comments, conversations, or thoughts for Jason? Any clarifying points or other discussion? We're right at, I would say, almost 7. So, we have until 7:30, but if there's no other topics or thoughts, we can definitely close out early and just remind that this presentation will be on our YouTube channel probably early next week. So you can revisit it, share it. I think in the presentation that you receive has Jason's information. So if you want to follow up with him specifically, you'll have access to him. And I had a boss that said, if fish wouldn't get caught, Jason said earlier he was donating a book to our organization. So those that complete the survey that we send out to you at the end of each of our sessions and return it will enter to win that book. So I appreciate you, Jason, for making that donation. But those that participate in the survey can get access to his book. So any closing thoughts before we end our session this evening?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we are. I'm satisfied. I know how to figure it out, how to look it up, further my knowledge on the situation, and I'm pretty good. I ain't gonna lie. We got to change. It's right now. It's right now. Never. The opportunity is bigger and bolder than ever. Everybody getting in position now, so we need to get ourselves in position.
Thank you
I
for
want to be a
that.
black citizen.
So Jason, you were going to share some final thoughts?
Yeah, I would tell people, don't feel so overwhelmed where you're not doing nothing. Just take whatever steps you do. Take a step, right? I think Martin Luther King, paraphrasing, but I remember he said, if you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. I think that's what it comes. When we're talking about retirement savings, don't feel overwhelmed where you got to know everything and try to be perfect to do everything. The key is just to do something. And just to make that step and make that move. If you're going to put away $1 right now. Put away something and build yourself up and build up your confidence and keep just doing it. And you'll see great things happen while you're educating yourself. But more importantly, you're saving. You're going like, man, I got some money in the bank. And it's crazy. I give out my wife. She's like, man, I saved some money. I was like, yeah. She's like, it feels good. I never thought in my mind that I could save like that. Her mindset will always check the check and go to Starbucks all the time and let me check the check. And now she's like, man, I got money in the bank. Now I'm trying to double it. And her confidence got built up. So don't feel overwhelmed that you don't do anything. Do something.
Well, I think that's the final thought of the night. A little bit of something is a whole lot better than a whole lot of nothing. So got to start somewhere. And when you start, the better you get. So every other month, so we will have another Money Matters session in March. So look out for us on Constant Contact, Facebook. Keep track of the different activities. If you have any other questions around your money management outside of getting people to home ownership, we do basic financial counseling, helping you with your budget, helping you with credit. So however we can support you to get you ready toward retirement, happy to do so. And Jason, as always, it is a pleasure. So you know where to find us, and if there's anything else we can do to get you to your financial goals, don't hesitate to reach out. So with that, I'm going to close out the evening. We will stay on for any last minute questions, but those that would like to end the evening, you're welcome to drop off, and appreciate you spending time with us.
Thank you. Look forward to the next session.